deliver on their vague promise of a bailout.
All right, for more, Yu-Dee Chang is back, principal trader from Ace Investment. Those bond yields and the spreads between those yields and the German Bund, which is kind of the benchmark that people over in Europe look like, were very, very wide yesterday. They've come back. Credit default swaps have come down overnight a little bit. I don't know, we're calming again with this Greece situation, but a couple of times here we've thought it's over and it hasn't been. What do you make of what's happening in Europe?
Well, that's exactly what the problem is, right? The market, well, everyone else for that matter, really just hate uncertainty, and that's what's the problem with Greece. We talked about the fact that Greece is only about 3% of the EC's GDP. It's only 1/7 the size of the economy of California. So what is really the big deal there? The big deal is that, number one, they hid their problem from the world. That's number one. Number two is that it's been 2.5 months. EU, just get it resolved already. You were reporting that Trichet was saying that, hey, no problem. What the European leaders said, we will take care of the problem, we will. However, he also said ECB, the European Central Bank, will not be the one who's making the decision. The Euro leaders will. But that's where the problem is, because they're the one who's been arguing over and disagreeing how exactly they should be handling Greek debt problem. That's where the problem is. Too much uncertainty.
And Yu-Dee, you really highlight a point here, which many people are asking. What can we really take away from the Greek situation, and how does that really apply to America's economy as well? Paul Krugman wrote an op-ed piece in the New York Times entitled "Learning from Greece," and the crux of his argument is we really need to be concerned more about deflation at this time than even having any concerns on inflation. Do you agree with that?
Well, I sort of agree with that a little bit. I mean, if you think about it, there's absolutely no signs of inflationary pressure right now. And actually, even more interesting point is that sometimes if you look down the road, actually, we're getting, like you're saying, some deflation. Deflationary, the problem is that all the assets are actually losing value. And that's what's going to be the problem is. And also, I think U.S. is going to be a little bit different than Greece, I think, because one of the problems is that EC is saying that, well, you know what, maybe we shouldn't bail you out. Maybe you should go to IMF. Can you imagine if California runs in trouble and the state of Maryland is saying that, you know what, we're one of the 5 states who have AAA rating, so I don't want to bail you out, so why don't you go to World Bank to bail you out? So I think it's still going to be a little different.
Now, the big argument here in the United States is how to deal with the situation right now, and whether the lesson learned from Greece is that we need to fight our budget deficits right now, get them in line, and not have runaway spending become a long-term problem. Or, as someone like Krugman would say, no, the opposite is true. You have to keep spending now so that high unemployment doesn't become a big problem down the line, because if you cut off the spending, then the unemployment rate is only going to spike much higher. Where do you come down on that particular disagreement?
Well, I think spending-wise, you really have to have responsible spending, right? So I do realize the problem is that if you totally cut back on spending, then you will hurt the economic growth in terms of which is going to negatively impact your economy anyway. So I think we should spend reasonable amount, but this unlimited spending by raising taxes is definitely not the way to go. We're really going to head ourselves exactly down the road of Greece. Eventually, it's not going to be pretty. So I'm in the camp that we should be fiscally responsible.
There you go. Yu-Dee. Thank you, my friend. Yu-Dee Chang out there in D.C. Thanks for joining us this morning. Good stuff. Okay, let's move on here. Tribune reaching a deal with credit.